I recently made a couple of shorts presenting the German spelling alphabet and was quite surprised at just how much interest they generated. But of course, with a maximum of 60 seconds, a short isn't enough to go into any depth. So this video is going to fix that by being a lot longer. I will be speaking specifically about the German spelling alphabet. Switzerland and Austria obviously have their own versions, but including them would just make this video impossibly long and complicated. Also, when I show you the alphabets, I'll be leaving the umlauts and other special characters until the end. Normally they would appear mixed in with the basic alphabet, but I felt that this way was just a bit clearer for the purposes of this video. The need for a spelling alphabet came about towards the end of the 19th century when people started communicating over the radio and the telephone. And in those days, the audio quality was terrible.
And this is why, when you listen to a vintage radio show, everybody is talking very clearly and very slowly.
This was a problem for anybody who needed to, for example, spell their name. It could be difficult to distinguish between, for example, M and N, or B and P, or O and U. So, in 1890, the Berlin Telephone Directory suggested replacing letters with numbers. So, if I were to spell out the name of this channel, that would be 17, 5, 22, 2, 14, 18, 18. Which was really difficult to remember. So in 1903, a new system was introduced. Each letter was given a name.
Albert, Bertha, Cäsar, David, Emil, Friedrich, Gustav, Heinrich, Isidor, Jakob, Karl, Ludwig, Marie, Nathan, Otto, Paul, Quelle, Richard, Samuel, Theodor, Ulrich, Viktor, Wilhelm, Xantippe, Y, Zacharias, Ärger, Ökonom, Überfluss.
So in this system, I would spell the name of this channel Richard Emil Wilhelm Bertha Otto Samuel Samuel. Much easier. Most of these are names of people, but there are some exceptions. The umlauts and the letter Q are just ordinary nouns, and as for the letter Y, that is extremely rare in German. I suppose they could have gone with a name like Yvonne, but since its German name is Y, it was already distinctive enough not to need any other name. It was a great system, but a few problems were noticed. For example, on a really bad line, Paul and Karl could be difficult to tell apart. So in 1926, a few changes were made, and the modified version sounded like this.
Albert, Bernhard, Cäsar, David, Emil, Friedrich, Gustav, Heinrich, Ida, Jakob, Katharina, Ludwig, Marie, Nathan, Otto, Paula, Quelle, Richard, Samuel, Theodor, Ulrich, Viktor, Wilhelm, Xantippe, Y, Zacharias, Änderung, Ökonom, Überfluss.
That didn't last very long, however. In early 1933, with the Nazis already in power and just one day before they passed their famous Enabling Act, a certain Herr Schliemann sent a postcard to the post office in Rostock suggesting that the Jewish names in the list be removed. This proved to be easier said than done. The problem was that an awful lot of these Jewish names were very common among Christians, because after all, the Jewish scriptures form part of the Christian Bible, so not everybody was convinced that this was a good idea. One very high-ranking Nazi, called Jakob Sprenger, complained that his name could not be remotely described as Jewish. Nevertheless, the changes went ahead, and this is the result.
Anton, Bruno, Cäsar, Dora, Emil, Fritz, Gustav, Heinz, Ida, J, Kurfürst, Ludwig, Marie, Nordpol, Otto, Paula, Quelle, Richard, Siegfried, Toni, Ulrich, Viktor, Wilhelm, Xantippe, Ypern, Zeppelin, Ärger, Öse, Übel, Charlotte, Schule.
Now, in case you're wondering about Ypern, that's the German for Ypres, a place in Belgium famous for being the scene of some nasty battles in the First World War, including one where Germany used poison gas for the first time. On the positive side, and surprisingly there is one, the new alphabet contained names for two very common letter combinations. After all, why say Anton, Siegfried, Cäsar, Heinz, Emil, when instead you could just say Anton, Schule, Emil. After the Second World War, West Germany took the idea of a spelling alphabet to new heights. German Industry Norm 5009 was created for the reading out and dictation of texts, and it included a now official spelling alphabet.
Anton, Bertha, Cäsar, Dora, Emil, Friedrich, Gustav, Heinrich, Ida, Julius, Kaufmann, Ludwig, Martha, Nordpol, Otto, Paula, Quelle, Richard, Samuel, Theodor, Ulrich, Viktor, Wilhelm, Xantippe, Y, Zacharias, Ärger, Ökonom, Übermut, Charlotte, Schule, SZ.
This one restored some, but not all, of the Jewish names that the Nazis had removed. It also explicitly listed SZ, which previous versions hadn't. Meanwhile, East Germany used its own version, which didn't restore any of the Jewish names.
Anton, Bertha, Cäsar, Dora, Emil, Friedrich, Gustav, Heinrich, Ida, Julius, Konrad, Ludwig, Martha, Nordpol, Otto, Paula, Quelle, Richard, Siegfried, Theodor, Ulrich, Viktor, Wilhelm, Xantippe, Y, Zeppelin, Ärger, Öse, Übel, Charlotte, Schule.
Now, right up until the 1990s, people were still using this method of spelling out words. But even in West Germany, where Samuel and Zacharias were now official, people were still saying Siegfried and Zeppelin. For example, on Glücksrad, the German version of the classic game show Wheel of Fortune.
Ein S wie Siegfried.
S. Da kommt
Das Z wie Zeppelin.
Z wie Zeppelin.
But even the official industry norm was criticized for failing to reverse all of the Nazis' changes. A new version, closely based on the pre-Nazi version, was later published but not made official. Instead, it was decided that a completely new approach was needed. So the version introduced last year uses city names instead. So this is what we're supposed to be using now.
Aachen, Berlin, Chemnitz, Düsseldorf, Essen, Frankfurt, Goslar, Hamburg, Ingelheim, Jena, Köln, Leipzig, München, Nürnberg, Offenbach, Potsdam, Quickborn, Rostock, Salzwedel, Tübingen, Unna, Völklingen, Wuppertal, Xanten, Y, Zwickau, Umlaut Aachen, Umlaut Offenbach, Umlaut Unna, SZ.
When I put this one in one of my shorts, a lot of people asked why they went for Unna when the city of Ulm is much better known. And the answer to that is that Ulm is surprisingly difficult to say. In fact, it even features in a tongue twister. In Ulm und Ulm Ulm herum. And I'm amazed that I managed that in a single take. They also went for Goslar instead of Gera because Gera sounded too similar to Jena. As for why S is Salzwedel and not Stuttgart, I actually have no idea. It remains to be seen whether or not this version will catch on. I suspect that it probably won't. Modern audio devices have much better audio quality, and in any case, thanks to things like messaging apps, we now do most of our communication in written form. Most people will probably never have any particular reason to learn a spelling alphabet. But it's comforting to know that there is one, should we ever need it. As Richard Emil Wagner, Bertha Otto Siegfried No. Richard Emil Wagner, Bertha Otto Richard Emil Wilhelm is that Ulm is in Ströge.